This video is the third in the series of Meet Your Neighbor, a project intended to allow deacons and the entire diaconate community to get to know one another better. It is the case that we can be separated by geography, age, interests, and culture or ethnicity. Consequently, we might not regularly interact with each other. I want to work on bridging and curing this lack of familiarity. I know that there is great beauty, strength, generosity, and skill among the hundreds of deacons of the Archdiocese of Chicago. When we know each other better, we might be challenged to emulate what others are doing. And that is good for the church. It is good for the people of God in the church. When we know each other better, we are able to know where the needs of the church might be, and we can offer ourselves to assist. And that is good for the church, as I say. It is good for us. When we know each other better across lines that divide in the broader culture, we come to see that the power of the gospel that calls us, of course, to be our better selves. If we want peace, we can't ask others to do what we ourselves can't do. And leading with the Word of God as a lamp unto our feet, as we are able, that too is good for the church. The aspirations might be similar. It is the challenges that more likely differ among us. The interview you are about to see is with Deacon LeRoy Gill. As Deacon Gill tells us, he is married to Teresa, that he is a father, a grandfather, a business owner, and educator. In his life story, you will no doubt recognize some struggles and joys that you have experienced yourself. Other elements of Deacon LeRoy's story will be new or foreign territory for us. In recognizing both what is outside our experience and what is the same, we will be confirmed in knowing that the human aspirations for fulfillment are, by and large, common, no matter where we grew up, what languages we speak, or what racial group we might identify with. The hope is that ultimately we will come to know that despite any differences among us, what we share is so much deeper, richer, and broader than what might seem to separate us. We are each sons and daughters of the same Lord. That is our first identity. As I've said in the other videos, we are not looking to do anything right now except gather some data about who we are. And we are back with another of our 4 interviews. And the gentleman sitting on the opposite side of the screen from me is Deacon LeRoy Gill. So Deacon Gill, say hello to the assembled hundreds of thousands of people watching this video.
Hello, I'm Deacon LeRoy Gill. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Richard.
Tell me something about yourself, family, work, the biographical stuff. Who are you?
Well, I'm married to my lovely wife, Teresa. We have 4 children, 10 grandchildren. When I'm not doing my diaconal duties, I'm a plumbing contractor in the city of Chicago. I've been in the contracting business for 37 years. I work at a school. I'm working with a lot of the youth in the Inglewood community in Chicago, and just doing my diaconal duties and living in my life. And I live out in Olympia Fields, southern suburb of Chicago.
Okay. Now, for those who aren't familiar with the geography, Inglewood, roughly, where's that situated in the city?
Inglewood is probably from, let's say, maybe 55th Garfield to 67th Street, from Ashland, let's say Vincennes. That's that in a nutshell.
Okay. All right. So if I know where University of Hyde Park is, University of Chicago, that's southwest of U of C.
Yes, we're southwest of UFC.
Yeah,
yes.
Okay. All right. And Olympia Fields, I know that well. Just a biographical note. I used to live in Chicago Heights, which is just on your northern border. I went to Infant Jesus of Prague for. All right, so are you? Is the Gill family? Are you all Chicagoans, or are you
Yes.
transplants?
Yes, I'm from Chicago originally. I grew up in St. Felicitas Parish in a neighborhood called Marynook, like Stony Island, 85th Street,
Okay.
Chicago.
All right. And
Born and raised.
now how about the generation before you? Chicagoans or transplants?
The generation before, yeah, my parents were from Chicago. My dad was born in Mississippi,
Mm-hmm.
but he moved to Chicago at a young age.
Now, how about Teresa? Where does she hail from?
My wife, Teresa, is from Greensboro, North Carolina.
Okay. All right. And so her
And
family.
her parents are from North Carolina as well, from other little small towns in Greensboro.
And you mentioned that your ministry, you work with young kids at St. Benedict the African School.
Correct.
Among other things.
Mm-hmm.
You're also Chef LeRoy. I've seen the photographic evidence that you do that barbecue for the kids and the police officers. Were you able to bring that off this year or not?
No, we didn't. Unfortunately not, because as a matter of fact, the week that we normally would do it, we actually met, but there was so much protest going on. We just decided, the principal and I decided that it wasn't safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
It wasn't safe to have the kids out in the yard with the police and cooking and things going on when tensions are so high right now.
Yeah. And so
So
we're filming this towards the end of September of 2020. So yeah, there's lots of stuff going on. So you're talking a week or two ago.
Yeah, we're talking early August.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, normally I do it the first Friday of August is normally when we do it.
Oh, okay. Now that it brings to mind, conspicuous is your digital backdrop there. City of Chicago, panorama, cross, and then it says "Stop the Violence." What's the deal with that? What's that representing?
Well, that was the caption we had on the flyer for our 10th annual Sunrise Prayer Service. And it's about us praying over the city of Chicago. So you see the deacon holding the cross, looking out at the city in prayer, praying that this violence can end. And it's for the protection of our children and the safety of our families.
Now, I've got to say that silhouette of the deacon, that's got to be me. Is that? I'm sure it's not.
Yeah, I don't know who it is.
Yeah.
It's not me either.
Okay, well, I hope you got permission to use that. One of the purposes of this series is just to have us meet each other. And I wanted to ask you what you think your experience of growing up was, say, compared to mine. What is, by virtue of being an African American male in Northern City, Chicago, growing up in the city itself, how did your blackness, I struggle with words and I apologize if I'm,
okay,
saying the wrong thing. But did that have anything, how did that affect your interaction with the world, how you saw the world, how you managed school and church?
As a kid, yeah, it affected it tremendously.
How so?
And it has affected me even today. I grew up, so I moved in, our family moved on 85th and Dorchester in Marynook in 1963. And we were the second Black family on the block. And I was going into first grade at St. Felicitas School. And when we moved in, like I said, I was young, But I always remember that over the first few years of first grade through fifth grade, maybe, the difference how the white families began to move out. As we moved in, then I believe another family moved in, then another family, black families moved in, then the white families began to move out. And I remember being told that they did not want to live with blacks. You know, there was this general belief amongst whites, say in Chicago, that if the blacks move in the neighborhood, there goes the neighborhood. You know, the rundown buildings, everything is going to get torn up. And, you know, it was just a tough situation. Tensions were high. People weren't happy. But I mean, I remember the treatment. I mean, it'll stay with me all my life. I remember the treatment that we received from our neighbors. You know, we were called names, the N-word. We were harassed. We woke up one morning with my dad was a superintendent for a large plumbing company at the time, and he had a nice yellow company car, a station wagon, and, you know, they spray painted SWAT stickers on the car and on our garage. So it was tough. You know, I got jumped on more than twice, 3, 4 times throughout my growing up at St. Felicitas in the neighborhood. It was just, it was tough. It was tough.
All right, so this was, you said 1963?
63, I was in first grade, so
Okay.
we're talking 63 as I was growing up,
all right,
up to about 5th grade. I would say after 5th grade, it stopped.
Okay, so I mean, that's a little kid.
Yeah, oh yeah. These were, yes, we were little kids, and the other kids were young kids too, but they were in groups. And it was going on with the older kids as well. It was just the tone of the neighborhood was just it was hateful during the first few years, but eventually things did get better.
Mm.
And I always laugh and say that one thing was for sure, inside the school at St. Felicitas, you know, the incidents didn't take place, you know, because, you know, remember back then we had the nuns with the 2x4s.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah.
Do you remember what order of nuns it was running the school?
Felicitas, the
Felician sisters, maybe?
Felicians, I'm thinking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm thinking.
Well, that's good. You know, that's encouraging to hear. At least there is a safe place.
That was
the gradual dampening down of the animosity. People got used to you, or gave up?
No, I think what happened was as the neighborhood began to integrate, you know, the neighborhood was still solid, and it still is today. But I think the one thing that I give credit to was the church, was that we had, you know, back in the 60s, late 60s, you know, we had the CYO.
Mm-hmm.
So we had an array of sports. You know, we had Navy Pier where there was basketball going on. So we came together through the basketball team, you know, the football team. We had softball teams. We had the volleyball teams. Then we had the Boy Scouts, the Cub Scouts, the Brownies, the Girl Scouts, altar serving, crossing, you know, the patrol boys. We became friends through those things.
Wow.
Not saying that on the football field we didn't have some issues,
Sure,
you know, or on the basketball court in the locker room, and we had some issues when we traveled to other schools.
Yeah, I remember hearing, and much after when you were an adult, you know, in the city, I remember hearing about those kinds of issues.
Yeah, you know, there was serious issues when we would travel to some schools.
Yeah, yeah. Now, what about high school? What's your high school career?
Now that was funny. I went to Mount Carmel. Mm-hmm. No, it is, because first day of school, you know, I go in my classroom And guess who's in the class? All the great white flighters who left Mary Nook, moved to Beverly.
Or Homewood.
They went to Mount Carmel.
Yeah.
Yet my next door neighbor, who was probably one of the meanest kids that I knew, he sat right next to me. And it was just like, you know, I mean, at that time, my mind wasn't set on history repeating itself, but that's what it was. It was God just saying, okay. I mean, all the kids from Felicitas that had left wound up in Mount Carmel. So, and when I got there, some of the sophomores and juniors and seniors, they were the kids from the neighborhood. And we got along fine.
Is that right?
Got along fine. We had a lot of, there was racial tensions at Mount Carmel as well, of course. You know, my class at Mount Carmel was the largest class of Blacks that they had ever had. And I don't know if it was in an experiment or what they were doing, but there was quite a, you know, it was a few of us. And I remember one day in a lunchroom, we were playing music and they didn't like our music. Some of the other kids, the white kids. And the big football player, you know, Mount Carmel's known for these big burly football players. Right, he came in, took the radio, broke, you know, and a fight assumed, you know, a race fight. Blacks versus white, tables flying, food flying, you know, and it's hard to say, but I guess you may be able to imagine who wound up in the office, you know, and whose parents had to come up to the school. You know, it was us, you know, that we instigated this fight. So the racism was still prevalent and it was still at our face. Mm-hmm. And Richard, you know, being Black in Chicago, I mean, it never ends. You know, after high school, going to the trade, you know, because my dad was a plumber, I was able to get into the union. 2 Blacks in my class at the union. One was me, the other one was the nephew of the head of the Urban League. So same situation, we were ignored, you know, but, you know, the fact that I was raised in the trade from my grandfather and father, I pretty much knew what I was doing. So being shunned didn't affect me as much as it affected the other guy. And then a couple of the students in the other classes, you know, but it's always been, you know, we've always been shunned. We've always known in our minds and taught, and I tell the kids that we had to do better. I had to be 2-3 times better at plumbing than the other guy if I wanted to work. And as time went on in the trades, when I was a 4th-year apprentice, I was working for a large high-rise plumbing company. And I was downtown on a 22-story high-rise. And I was the lead plumber on what we call the decks as they come up with the building. I was treated horribly by the plumbers. I had maybe 10 plumbers under me and they were white. I mean, coming in the mornings, my heart had broken up in pieces. Or on the elevator, there was a picture of a Black guy with a bone through his nose, with an earring on, with guess who, LTG, sabotaging the plumbing, not tightening the pipes to make me look bad, that kind of stuff, you know. So it's never ending, Richard. You know, and I finished the high rise. It was ironic. I completed the last deck the day after I got my journeyman's license. So when I completed the deck, I got in my car and went to the shop and I quit. And the owner of the company told me that I was no good. I'd never be a good contractor. He told me my dad was not a good contractor. He talked about us and I said, but yet I was a 4th-year apprentice putting up a 22-story high-rise for you. But, you know, you're saying all these negative things for me, but I was running your work. And it took me about an hour or so to get out of there because he wanted to, and the bottom line was he knew that I knew what I was doing. And he told me, he says, you'll see me again because I'm the head of the arbitration board for the union. And when we bring you up on charges, I'll be the one that you'll see. You know, so that's that type of treatment. And needless to say, it goes on to being a Black man in business, you know, as a contractor, you know, trying to survive. It's not easy.
Now that's so getting the journeyman's license, that's going back to the 70s?
Me getting my journeyman's license?
Yeah.
I got my journeyman's license in 82.
Okay, 82. And then when did you start off on your own enterprise?
83.
Okay, all right. So you've been doing that for a long time.
Yeah. I opened up my first contractor's license was December 27th, 1983.
Well, not that you remember.
It's on my wall.
Okay, all right. So then you've been scrabbling out a living since then. You know, one of the themes for the Sunrise Prayer Service this year was it not "Ain't No Ways Tired"?
Right, no ways tired.
Aren't you tired of being different, being paid attention to because of your race? And if so, what do you do about it?
I don't know if I'm tired. I think maybe I was tired, but I can't be tired now because of the children that I minister to, because of my grandchildren. If you remember at the sunrise service, I talked about my granddaughter's fear of the violence and the hate. So it's, you know, it's hard to be tired. You know, it's funny, I was talking to the kids yesterday. You know, the kids wanted to talk to me about Black Lives Matter and police abuse. You know, like I said, these are great. I was with the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders yesterday. You know, and their fears of being Black, walking around, the young Black boys walking around with targets on their backs. I don't know, Richard. It's tired is just not the word. Frustrated. I don't know if I know the word for it. I am tired of struggling. I am tired of trying to prove myself.
What do you tell what's the message to the kids at the grade school in terms of coping, in terms of not giving up hope?
Well, what we talked about yesterday was what I just said. I told them that whatever they want to be, because we went around as we talked, and I walked around to the kids, and you know, I mean, we're scattered all over the lunchroom. I mean, because of the social distancing. So I'm trying to get to them, but they were all saying what they want to be when they grow up, you know. And just say one kid said, "I want to be a doctor," and I said, "Let me tell you something." I said, "You have to be the best doctor. You can't just be a doctor, because there's a lot of doctors. And if you want to work, if you want to be somebody," I said, "you have to be 2 or 3 times better than your counterparts." I said, "So it starts here in the classroom." You know, we had a kid that wants to be, I'm only going to talk about the good kids that pick the good careers. You know, I want to be a lawyer, you know, and I said, "You got to study," you know. And then, of course, we had the kids who are going to be the NBA superstars and you know, and I explained to them that their chances of that are, you know, are very slim. And that's okay. You're in 7th grade. That's okay to dream. I said, but think about something else that you might want to do, you know, a lot of, you know, but basically just telling them that they have to work hard, you know, and they got to be better. And that was the message pretty much that I told them. Of course, and we talked about being faithful. You know, our talk was based on God will take care of you, you know, and I said, you know, you just have to be the best. You know, we used the analogy of the birds and, you know, the feeding and, you know, but God But God says you still got to work for what, he's just not going to give you everything. You still got to work hard for it. And I encourage them to just work hard for whatever they decide to do, and to work hard now. But they're afraid. They're afraid of the police. They're afraid of the hate. And it pains me. It pains me to see the little children, you know, it never ends. It's all different shapes, different forms. And for me as a businessman in Chicago, it was hidden. It was hidden. It was, you know, they hid it. But now there's more of a freedom to be who you really are than it was 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. You know, and I'm not getting into politics, but the climate now is that it's okay. And that's the fear that I have for the young people, because it's not okay.
Now, does that, do we say, yes, that's forward progress, or it's just an accident of the moment, and there's no progress, or are we moving forward?
I tend to think that we were moving forward, but I tend to think my concern was that maybe it wasn't real. Maybe we adapt, we do what we have to do and still get what we want. You know, I mean, Chicago is just, it's so hidden, but it's just obvious. I mean, when you look at who controls what, it's still all about control and keeping the other down. I mean, unions, they're still controlled by a certain entity. You know, everything is still controlled. And it's designed where it's very difficult for Blacks to achieve and to grow. A few of us do. But if you want to make a good living, but the minute you're stepping into where you're not supposed to be.
You are a deacon in the Roman Catholic Church, man of faith. What is your faith? How does your faith help you in this struggle?
For me, I have seen the Lord work in my life. I have seen the Lord make ways out of no way. My faith is at times all I have. You know, Richard, if you know, and I'm sure you may remember, even when I was a deacon in training, when I was in the formation and I lost my child, and I was, you know, asked to leave the diaconate to mourn my child, and I wanted to stay in, and I remember telling my pastors that, God called me to be a deacon. So God is going to work this out. And in the end, I was back in class and I got ordained, so my faith tells me to continue staying on the battlefield, just preaching the word to the people. And that's why my ministry with the young people is the most important thing I have. With my grandkids, with the kids at the schools, I'm at another church. I do family masses for another school. So I'm constantly preaching to young people about the faith in God and having faith that, that God will. And my faith has carried me a long way through my marriage, through raising 4 kids, having 4 teenagers, having 4 kids at college at the same time, being broke, being busted, being disgusted. But the faith it sustained us, and it has blessed our marriage. So, there's an old saying, if you don't give up on God, he won't give up on you.
Just a couple more questions. One is, well, maybe it really boils down to one. What didn't I ask you that I should have, and just in terms of having people understand who Deacon Gill is, and what's do you see signs of hope? You're preaching, do you see a response? So those are
I think one question you didn't ask me, how has what I've gone through in my life with racism, how has it affected my outlook on whites? What do I feel when I meet someone? For a long time, I was bitter. And, it's interesting because the whites that I was in contact with in my area were the Irish Americans, and in Mount Carmel they're the same. And then the Irish Americans ran the union, run the unions. And so there was a hurt inside of me that I had for Irish. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, it was not until I went through the diaconate that changed. Because there was a kid in my class that when I met him, I said, oh Lord, another Irish guy. And we became to be the best of friends. And I think there'll always be this, not standoffish, but
caution
of trust. And it's hard and it hurts. But there is still, it's hard for me to trust totally. Because I know that you could be nice to me, you could do everything and still, just be going through the motion because of that's what you have to do. But is it genuine? Is it really your heart? And I think my faith and what I've been through, that I have been able to distinguish between the difference of somebody whose heart is real and somebody who's phony. And there's still a lot of both, black and white. There's it's still there. I feel that this time in America is different. Really optimistic that the change is going to happen. I just see the love of all coming together now. Even though the protests have gotten ugly, the riots are ugly, the looting is ugly, but there's whites, there's blacks, it's all people. There's people in other countries. It's everybody's coming together for this cause. This world, everybody's just, I think everyone is tired of racism. And the few that want to keep perpetuating it, they're a minority. So, God says the meek shall inherit the earth. So I'm going to roll with that, Richard.
So, good strategy. And I suppose, I guess to turn the tables, one half Irish American here. But I know what you're saying. I remember, we've talked before, but I remember I grew up in Roseland as a little kid. I'm a little bit older than you are, but I remember the adults getting, this would be like 1959, and I was 7 years old. I remember hearing, the aunts and uncles talking about they're coming. They're coming south. We were at 110th and Vernon. And so they were talking about like 95th Street. That was the great dividing line. And they have come. And, there was no mystery about who they were. It was black people. And that was in the water, so to speak. That was in the air for us little kids. And that's how we're supposed to think. And it's not an excuse for any personal responsibility for my own sinfulness, but that's those Irish American kids that you bumped heads with. That's what they heard at home, and times 10. But that was the message to us kids. And so if there's a caution on your side, so too is there on my side, in the sense of, we talk about sides. There is, not right.
I know what you mean.
Side. But, I struggled before, am I using the right words? Do I am I unintentionally offending? And I don't want to do that. So there's this gap, sadly, that exists. And I think maybe that's why I wanted to gather the four deacons together in this little video project and just begin to talk to each other and give us permission, give me permission, please, for asking a dumb question, or even, an obtuse question or an offensive question. I don't intend to be that way. And I won't know if I am that way until, you and I trust each other, and I think we do. I trust you.
I trust you.
So there we go. So that we can have the conversation to move forward. And I think it's important that, that we hear from each other. Question I didn't ask, just popped into my head. A lot of the dynamic racially, back in your childhood and in my childhood, was black-white. It wasn't until, in the 80s, 90s, that the largely Mexican, some Puerto Rican, but the Hispanic generalized culture became a thing in Chicago, and now it's huge. What's your experience as a black man vis-a-vis, say, Hispanic? Is there interaction? Is that a different thing? You were an adult really when that came to be. And any thoughts on that?
I don't know too much. I know that I had a Hispanic kid for me for probably about 12 years. And we, he shared some things with me. What their fear of blacks, but he and I got along fine. And the reason I bring him up was because in the last year that he worked for me, because his son was murdered, and he was always a young man that was struggling with faith and God. He was in his 30s, and his son was shot brutally. And he called me, and he told me his son was just murdered and that he had to go identify the body, and he didn't want to. So I went and, I went to do it. And then later, I remember going by the house when, all the family so this was his son was actually in a little trouble. He was a troubled young man. And so there was a lot of kids out there. And I remember parking, getting out the car, walking in, and I was scared. And they all looked at me, like, who is this guy? And then eventually he came out, and I wound up even doing the funeral for his son, me and Father Chuck Dom. And but I just know that there was a sense of no trust between his family, not his wife, because I knew his wife, but his family, his brothers who came in, and his family of who I was. There was a trust, other than the fact that he kind of said, "This is my boss," and, but I didn't have a lot of experience with Hispanics or, Mexican Americans, whatever. Other than that, like I said, he worked for me, and, I'm with them a lot on the jobs. They're great people, hard workers. So I really can't comment on any racial things with them. I don't know.
Well, the reason I ask it in terms of the diaconate is, I think we would say just shy of 25% of the deacons in Chicago would claim Spanish as their first language. Whether Puerto Rican, Mexican, Guatemalan, a couple of Argentinians, up and down, from the U.S. border south, and then also out to Puerto Rico. So that's a lot of us. That's 100 plus deacons in the archdiocese, and I think it's important for us to talk to one another. So as I mentioned, we don't have 3 diaconates. We have one in Chicago, and yes, it can be not only a cultural difference, a life experience difference, but also you've got a language barrier many times. So that really makes it difficult. So, perhaps putting this little video project together might help in some way, and just having us talk to one another. So
if I could just say something though, Richard, with the Hispanics or the Blacks, it still all boils down to trust. It's still trust. Because in my opinion, they're just like, they're a part of the we. There's still trust. I mean, we don't want to open up to you. And you know what I mean? We still are going to be reserved. We got to be, we're cautious. There's.
And that just can't be, ideally. But if you think about it, we're talking about, 500 plus men, the deacons, who have given their lives to service of the church, of the Lord, of spreading the gospel. And if it's tough for us to, have that ready trust, oh my gosh, what hope is there? So I guess it's in a sense a challenge to us to, in a sense, man up and, you're not going to hurt me, and I'm not going to hurt you. And we have to maybe overcome acknowledge maybe some resistance to that. But in the final analysis, if we can't trust a brother deacon, just forget it.
It's just that you say that, but the difference is you have the power to hurt us.
Okay.
In business, it's always who has the power.
Right. No,
so there's always going to be this lack of trust until the playing field is leveled. There'll always be that lack of trust because you can't hurt us. The Hispanics are running, they're undocumented. They're running around. They're scared because you can hurt them. And that's the bottom line.
No,
that's the fear.
I don't minimize that. And my point is simply that surely the diaconate within our own boundaries, that's got to be a beginning place. That needs to be a safe place. The rest of the world, not so much. Not at all, as you point out. But starting somewhere, we've got to insist on that amongst the 500 plus Chicago deacons.
Yes.
So anyway, all right. I'm going to let you get about plumbing business and teaching kids. So I'm going to let you go with great gratitude for taking the time to do this and sharing your heart, and hopefully had a good conversation. I certainly enjoyed talking. So give my best to the Mrs. Penix Gill, and all right. Well, Deacon LeRoy Gill, may God bless you and your family and all of your ministry. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. God bless you too, Richard. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Deacon LeRoy Gill, for your willingness to share some of your story and for your insights. As you've seen, Deacon LeRoy has recited both the struggles of a life and the hope for a better future, a future that will rest in the goodness of the Lord and the redemption he has brought to the world. Each of us know about the struggles in different ways. Each of us may have experienced our own Exodus story, a story that might be told in terms of marginalization because of race, or a captivity in sorrow, or addiction, or loneliness. These stories are Exodus stories because there was a way out of captivity and a way into freedom and fullness. Perhaps as we respect each other because of our individual experiences of captivity, we will unite in helping others in reenacting Exodus, where we all walk through the desolation of the desert and into the land promised by our Lord. So again, thank you, Deacon LeRoy. Thank you to the others who have participated thus far. And thank you to all of you for sticking with us to the end. May God bless you, and I'll see you in the next video.